Selected parts from the book Lone Fox Dancing, Autobiography by Ruskin Bond, Part 10. During my second year in the prep school, there was to be no visit from my father. He and his unit were being moved about from place to place. First Karachi, then Calcutta. But he wrote to me regularly and sent me beautiful postcards, some of which I managed to keep. Besides the humorous grandpop postcards, there were cards with famous trains or ships or butterflies or pheasants or waterbirds or the crown jewels. There were also some unusual subjects such as First Lady Cyclist or Boy with a Dancing Bear. I kept them all carefully. Like my father, I was becoming a collector. And I was finally beginning to read books. Our library consisted of cupboard full of books chosen at random or left behind by departing teachers. Bound volumes of the boys' own paper failed to excite me. Enid Blyton was far too bland for my tastes, but I discovered a set of Edgar Wallace thrillers and proceeded to consume The Crimson Circle, The Double, and other mysteries, to be followed by further mayhem in the Bulldog Drummond series of crime thrillers, and topped up with the exploits of Saint Simon Templar, Leslie Charteris' swashbuckling hero, portrayed so effectively in films by the suave George Sanders. Not many people know that the author Leslie Charteris was half Chinese. He was always given out as a blue blooded Englishman. In those days, authors were invisible and did not lead public lives. They frequently assumed aliases. Ellery Queen was two people. John Dixon Kerr was also Carter Brown. Sexton Blake was a whole series of writers. I had begun with crime thrillers and detective stories genres that will keep me entertained to the end of my days. It would be a year or two before I entered the world of Charles Dickens, Robert Louis Stevenson, and J.B. Priestley. Crime preceded the classics. And meanwhile, there was another Priestley to contend with our venerable violin playing headmaster. This gentleman and his wife took little or no interest in the children, delegating all work and responsibility to their teaching staff and others. They did not particularly like us, except a few upper class English boys to whom they were outrageously partial. Mrs. Priestley would sometimes show a little interest in us, favoring us with the flat of her hairbrush on our bottom for misdemeanors, real or imagined. But I had no major complaints and was beginning to enjoy the school. My father wrote regularly from Calcutta, where he was now posted and living in his family home with his mother and my sister Ellen. In a long letter he wrote me on 20th August 1944, He told me that he was recovering from yet another attack of malaria. He said he had to wear glasses for reading now, but Ellen did not need glasses anymore and was getting better at holding a pencil and tried to draw dragons and elephants and tigers and wolves. He was looking forward to having me in Calcutta for the Christmas holidays and taking me to New Market, which he said was full of bookshops. I was just sitting down to write him a reply when one of my friends came up to me and said, Mr. Murtaugh wants to see you. I think it is serious. Had I broken some silly rule? Should I have been studying instead of writing letters home? Had my stack of comic papers been discovered? But no. Mr. Murtaugh took me aside, led me down the path towards the school gate, asked me to sit down on a bench under the deodars, sat down beside me, and proceeded to tell me as gently as he could, poor man, that my father was no more. God had taken him, he said. God had needed him more than I did. And so the bottom had fallen out of my world. A great void opened up in front of me. I knew almost immediately that my life had changed forever and that there was nothing, absolutely nothing, to look forward to. I was in the infirmary for a day because I had broken down and then passed out after I was given the news. I have a tendency to shut out painful memories, and I have experienced no greater pain than the loss of my father. I was 10, and the only person who had loved me and had any use for me was gone. Time heals, but I still cannot dwell on that day when I lay in the infirmary, breathing with some difficulty. If everything begins and ends with love, and I believe it does, my world had ended. I emerged from the desolate night somehow. That is all I am willing to recall. A week or two later, I received a letter from my mother telling me that I would be spending the winter holidays with her in Dehra and that I should take care of myself and concentrate on my studies. I had been wondering if I would be put in an orphanage, so this was a welcome message. It did not make me happy because I was already distant from my mother, but did bring some relief. She had also written to Mr. Priestley telling him this and asking him to keep an eye on me. One day, Priestley called me to his office and suggested that I leave my father's precious letters with him for safekeeping. I could collect them a day or two before school closed. I think he had heard from some teacher or prefect that I had been reading those letters again and again and brooding over them. I handed him all the letters except one that is lost and a couple of postcards. 2 months later, when the term ended, I went to Priest's office and asked for the letters. He looked at me with a blank expression. What letters? Had I left some letters with him? He looked in the drawers of his desk. No letters there. He would check with the senior master, he said. He was obviously a distracted man. Was he worried about his job, his future in a rapidly changing world? Had he just quarreled with his wife, or had he broken the strings of his violin? I don't know. I stood there for some time, then turned and walked away without another word. The promises of adults had ceased to mean anything to me. I still had one letter and some of the grandpop postcards, and that was all that I had from my father, apart from his everlasting love and care. For in the coming months, even his stamp collection disappeared. My father's letter. Aubrey Alexander Bond, 108485, Royal Air Force, care of 231 Group, Raw Post, Calcutta, 20th August 1944. Dear Ruskin, thank you very much for your letter received a few days ago. I was pleased to hear that you're quite well and learning hard. We are all quite okay here, but I am still not strong enough to go to work after the recent attack of malaria I had. I was in hospital for a long time, and that is the reason why you did not get a letter from me for several weeks. I have now to wear glasses for reading. I do not use them for ordinary wear, but only when I read or do book work. Ellen does not wear glasses at all now. Do you need any new warm clothes? Your warm suits must be getting too small. I am glad to hear the rains are practically over in the hills where you are. It will be nice to have sunny days in September when your holidays are on. Do the holidays begin from the 9th or September? What will you do? Is there to be a scouts camp at Taradevi? Or will you catch butterflies on sunny days on the school cricket ground? I am glad to hear you have lots of friends. Next year, you will be in the top class of the prep school. You only have 3.5 months more for the Xmas holidays to come round, when you will be glad to come home, I am sure, to do more stamp work and library study. The new market is full of bookshops. Ellen loves the market. I wanted to write before about your writing, Ruskin, but forgot. Sometimes I get letters from you written in very small handwriting as if you wanted to squeeze a lot of news into one sheet of paper. It is not good for you or for your eyes to get into the habit of writing small letters. I know your handwriting is good and that you came first in class for handwriting. But try and form a larger style of writing and do not worry if you can't get all your news into one sheet of paper, but stick to big letters. We have had a very wet month just past. It is still cloudy. At night we have to use fans, but during the cold weather it is nice, not too cold like Delhi and not too warm either, but just moderate. Granny is quite well. She and Ellen send you their fond love. The last I heard a week ago that William and all at Dehra were well also. We have been without a cook for the past few days. I hope we find a good one before long. There are not many. I wish I could get our Delhi cook, the old man now famous for his black puddings, which Ellen has not seen since we arrived in Calcutta 4 months ago. I have still got the records and gramophone and most of the best books, but as they are all getting old and some not suited to you, which are only for children under 8 years old. I will give some to William and Ellen, and you can buy some new ones when you come home for Xmas. I'm rearranging all the stamps that became loose and topsy turvy after people came and went through the collections to buy stamps. A good many got sold, the rest got mixed up a bit, and it is now taking up all my time putting the balance of the collection in order. But as I am at home all day, unable to go to work as yet, I have lots of time to finish the work of rearranging the collection. Ellen loves drawing. I give her paper and a pencil and let her draw herself without any help to get her used to the holding paper and pencil. She has got expert at using her pencil now and draws some wonderful animals like camels, elephants, dragons, with many heads, cobras, rain clouds shedding buckets of water, tigers with long grass around them, horses with manes, and wolves and foxes with bushy hair. Sometimes you can't see much of the animals because there is too much grass covering them, or too much hair on the foxes and wolves, and too much mane on the horses' necks, or too much rain from the clouds. All this decoration is made up by a sort of heavy scribbling of lines, but through it, all one can see some very good shapes of animals, elephants, and ostriches, and other things. I will send you some. Well, Ruskin, I hope this finds you well. With fond love from us all. Write again soon. Ever your loving Daddy. My father was 46 when he died. Weakened by malaria, he had succumbed to hepatitis. This I discovered later. I did not attend his funeral, and his death was not discussed for many years at home. It was not callousness on anyone's part. I think they did it to protect me at first, and when I was older, I did not seek or encourage any discussion. My memories of Daddy were mine alone. If one is present when a loved one dies or sees him dead and laid out and later buried, one is convinced of the finality of the thing and finds it easier to adapt to the changed circumstances. But when you hear of a death, a dear parent's death, and have only the faintest idea of the manner of his dying, it is rather a lot for the imagination to cope with, especially when the imagination is a small voice. There being no tangible evidence of my father's death, it was, for me, not a death but a vanishing. And although this enabled me to remember him as a living, smiling person, it meant that I was not wholly reconciled to his death and subconsciously expected him to turn up and deliver me from an unpleasant situation. It took me a lifetime to come to terms with the loss, and sometimes I still wonder if I have. You never really get over the loss of a beloved. You learn to live despite it. Was my father a happy man? Looking back, I think he was. He had managed to live the kind of life he wanted. He studied, worked, and traveled in many different parts of India, and he found the time and means to pursue his interests, collecting stamps, records, and butterflies, and taking photographs. He fell in love and he tried to start a family. If he felt he had failed at this, it was not something he talked about. My parents were incompatible. She was outgoing, he was not. Home was his favorite place. And yet, he never set up home anywhere. He seemed to like moving from one place to another and changing homes frequently. When we were living in a house for any extended period, he loved moving the furniture around, changing the bedroom into the living room, and vice versa, much to the irritation of my mother, who liked having things in their familiar places. That part of my father's temperament surprises me because he never gave the impression of being a restless man. But he never did settle down. Sometimes he spoke of making a home in Scotland beside Loch Lomond, but of course it was only a dream. What was he searching for? Perhaps it was an extended adolescence, or it could have had something to do with his double inheritance. His father had joined the British Army and come to India when he was still a teenager. He had spent all his adult life here, marrying and raising his children, and through all that time, there was home leave when the family went to England. But England was not really home. Everything they had was in India, and yet this was not home either. In Shimla, when my father came to see me, and in Delhi, when I spent my holidays with him, he would say, when the war is over, we will go to England. We will put you in a school there. There won't be a job for me here. He told me he was selling off segments of his stamp collection so that we would have money to start life afresh there. I would go with him and probably Ellen. He was not an advocate of empire. I don't think he liked India less or England more. His world was mainly in his room with his collections and his music. But as he saw it, we would always be associated with the empire and would not be accepted in free India. We wanted comfort and security, as all of us do, for ourselves and our loved ones. He wanted the best for me, his closest companion. After the separation from my mother, when he was alone in Delhi and his health was failing, I think he looked forward a great deal to the days that he spent with me, far more than I could have realized at the time. I was someone to come back to, someone for whom things could be planned. My love was unconditional, and he had wanted me all to himself. It was the best kind of selfishness. It had filled my little life with so much joy. Sometimes, well into middle age, I composed letters to my father. In my dreams, I would meet him on a busy street after many lots year, and he would receive me with the same old warmth. We would get into a little train together or sit in a dark hall watching a screen lit up with bright moving pictures. Where were you all these years? I would ask him, and he would ruffle my hair. My father had not died. He was a traveler in different dimensions, and he would turn up every now and then just to see if I was all right. It was only in 2001, when I was 67, that I finally went looking for my father's grave. I located it in Calcutta's Bhawanipur Cemetery. Flight Lieutenant Aubrey Alexander Bond had been laid to rest there by his mother, Gloriana. It must have been a small affair. Thank you very much.